the end. So just to start off with, this isn't a product-focused webinar by any means. It's more focused on the technical side, but just for the uninitiated in terms of what Ubiquiti is offering through their mobility solutions. So Ubiquiti does have, at this stage, 3 mobile routing solutions available to you, and we're going to also take a look at a fourth, although not mobility-focused, a fourth solution for 4G routing as well. So the idea behind these is that it's a all-in-one solution for remote connectivity. So it's basically a normal, as you would come to know and love um, about traditional 4G/5G solutions, a normal mobile router with additional capabilities. So Ubiquiti, obviously very good with their interfaces, specialize in unifying the experience, and we're going to show you the interface in a second. You can see how well integrated this is and how functions similarly to other Ubiquiti devices. So some of the standout features on these is stuff like site-to-site VPNs. As we're going to go through it, you'll see how important this becomes. You will also have the ability to set up a VPN client mode. They have support for routing capabilities directly on the router. And then, of course, as you would come to expect with something that's going to be used in mobile routing applications, it obviously supports flexible mounting and power options. So we're going to look through those in a second as well. So some of the other standout features on these devices, so some of them have some unique features. We're going to go through the different features on all of them in a second. But the Ubiquiti UMR, the industrial version, can do GPS tracking as well. So if you want to use this in mobile applications, such as something on a train or truck or something along those lines, it is 100% possible. One of the common use cases for this as well is where you have IoT devices on mobile platforms. So, for example, if you have a I don't know, a truck driving through the desert and you need connectivity to see what's happening on that bus or on that truck, and you want to see, for example, let's say it's a truck with cold storage and you want to get input on what the status is of the cold storage, etc. This is perfect for that, provided that you do have 4G connectivity. So this can be used for broad range of applications, stuff like digital signage, camera recording, etc. And of course, they do have outdoor capable versions as well. So these are a little bit more ideal for remote CCTV or surveillance in areas. And the ideal feature behind this is that it also does support PoE output. So it can both receive PoE as a method of powering the device, PoE plus specifically, and output that to a connecting device as well, potentially. So up to you to decide how you want to do that. So the powering method is obviously a very important part of this. We've worked very hard with Ubiquiti to make this as flexible as possible. So Leader has done a ton of extensive testing in Australia, which includes me using one of these things to go camping out in the middle of nowhere, and basically using this as my primary method of connectivity. So with this, you have obviously a lot of flexible power methods. You can use USB-C, so normal 5-volt USB-C power input, which is fine for powering up the device. And like I said before, you can also use PoE, so both PoE in and PoE out. So it'll be PoE plus in and then normal PoE out. That's perfect for solutions where you want to connect cameras or IoT devices or even bridge devices on the other side of that. Provided it uses PoE, it's going to work. The big one here, though, is the DC input. So it supports DC power input, and it supports 9 volt to 30 volt input. So it means if you're using this on a vehicle, it does support cold starting or overcurrent protection as well. So I've used this extensively, starting off my cold ute in the morning with the power directly on from the battery at 12 volt, and it's perfect. It powers up the device neatly. I did a I don't know, probably 30, 40 cold starts, no issues with the device. And that does have overcurrent protection as well. So for vehicle mounted solutions, this is perfect. It makes powering the device a lot simpler. And also for solutions where you're looking to do solar power, it makes it so much easier to do that as well. So just a very quick overview of the hardware. Again, it's not a like a sales focused webinar, but the different hardware obviously support different capabilities. So the one that most of you would probably know or have seen already is the UMR Industrial. So obviously 2 network ports on that with the PoE capabilities. These are ideal for use in both indoor and outdoor environments. They can be mounted onto a wall, a pole, they can be mounted with thin rails, and they are weatherproof as well. So they can be outdoor exposed. You just need to stick the cover onto it to make sure it is protected. And in terms of the throughput on these devices, so that's often a question that I get. These are Cat4 LTE devices. If you go look at the specifications online, they will typically say that these do up to about 150 megabits per second. I think that's a little bit on the positive side. From our real world testing, it looks to be about 30, 40 megabits per second, but obviously depends on where you're at and what your level of signal strength is. So real world speed would obviously be different to what is advertised, but that's pretty much par for the course. As a failover solution, that's more than enough for most sites, and also for IoT applications. So stuff where you're looking to connect a camera or looking to connect a sensor, 30 to 40 megabits per second is perfectly fine. Then there's also something new. You might have seen this on the Ubiquiti websites already. I have one right now next to me that I'm busy testing, and these are the new UMR Ultras. So similarly to the industrial, these also support much of the same software capabilities, site-to-site VPNs, etc. They also do have the 2 Ethernet ports on them, although this device is not meant to be used outdoors. So it's a little bit more cost effective. It's a little bit more compact as well. And obviously it's got a single antenna on the bottom side of that for the 2.4 gigahertz connectivity. So mentioning the 2.4 gigahertz connectivity, again, the idea behind these products is to connect IoT devices. IoT devices typically don't have 5G connectivity. So that radio or the device itself only has 2.4 gigahertz radio capabilities, which again is perfectly fine for most scenarios. So this is awesome little compact, cost-effective device. And then there's the normal mobile router, so the regular UMR. So these have been around the longest. Also LTE Cat 4. Also support very much the same software capabilities. The main difference here is that this is pretty much the UMR industrial in terms of the board, the chipset, etc., but it is meant for more indoor use environments. So kind of as a backup solution where you have a NBN connection coming in and you want 4G capability as failover. So this also supports much of the same hardware features in terms of integrated GPS capabilities, same powering methods, etc. But these are more meant for indoor environments or even mobile routing solutions where you can mount this under cover. So those are the mobility focused products. And then there's also a product here that I have to separate out. So mobility is focused on, as the name implies, mobile routing solutions. A lot of the requests that we get, though, as you guys would have as well, is to have LTE backup for businesses in a more static environment where you will have a router that will just take over in case the WAN goes down. Ubiquiti has a device for this. It's called the ULTE Backup Pro. So this device is, we're currently working with Ubiquiti to try and get this certified in Australia. So they've done a ton of extensive changes on this. It's literally just busy going through the certification process. So I'm hopeful that we will have these devices available to you in future. I'm just mentioning this straight off the bat that it's not available currently, but this is something that we know you guys want and we're working heavily towards to get. We're also in talks with Ubiquiti to see if they're willing to do a 5G version of this, which would be obviously a lot more throughput and better for business environments in case of failover. The differentiator between this and one of the mobility devices is the mobility devices are managed through a separate interface. They're managed through mobility.ui.com. This device, the Backup Pro, is managed through the Unify interface, and it is actually detected by the Unify controller automatically, and it's basically treated as much more of a component in the Unify ecosystem. Again, I'll be showing this to you in a second to show the differences between this device and the normal mobility devices. So let's take a look at the mobility devices. Firstly, we'll start off by looking at mobility.ui.com. So as I said before, this is the way we manage our mobility interfaces or our mobility devices. It is not part of the Unify management portal. It's not part of the Unify Site Manager. It is a completely separate interface. So the concept behind this is to segment out your connectivity and provide you more of a streamlined view for your mobile routing solutions. So through this, you can manage thousands of sites, regardless of their physical location, very similar to how it is in Unify. And the appearance of the GUI as well is very, very similar. So if you've used Unify products before, you'll likely be able to navigate through this nice and easily. We're going to go through the individual features set up in a second as well. So let's get into the more technical side of things. So first off, I'm going to start here by setting up the mobile application or the mobile device. What I'm going to do is I'm logging into mobility.ui.com and I'm adding a device in. Through this, I'm literally just taking the code that is on the back of the mobile router, typing it in, and it is activating this device on my mobility site manager. So through this, we'll see that it takes a bit of time for the device to come up. Obviously, it's reaching through the internet trying to find the device. You'll see it's going through this adoption process. And important to note here that this is just one of the adoption methods. So you can either use the Unify mobile application on your mobile phone and provision the device through that, or alternatively, you can use the code on the back of the device for remote provisioning as well. What's awesome about that is you just need to know the code. So essentially, you can take one of these mobile routers, ship it out to the customer, and basically just tell them stick a SIM card into it, give it power, and give me the code that's on the back of that device. If you have that code, it should automatically, as soon as you add it in, become adoptable. Provided that it has 4G connectivity, it will become adopted in the interface and you will be able to manage it from there. So from a remote management point of view, there's no pre-configuration that's required. It essentially allows you to ship the device directly to your customer, provided that your customer is capable of doing the basic steps like connecting power to it, etc. So super easy to manage these things remotely, or if you're tech out on site and you want to set this up, the mobile application on your phone is perfect for that as well. There's also a restriction. So you would have seen me type in the code there, but what happens if somebody else tried to adopt this device? So firstly, I'm going to mobility again, mobility.ui.com, saying activate device, and I'm typing in a code here that already is associated to another site. So someone else has already adopted this, and you will see as soon as I try to validate this, it says the device is already adopted. And you won't be able to adopt this into your site unless you get this reset. So this requires a ticket back to Ubiquiti or back to us, and we'll assist you with this reset process. So if it's a site that you're taking over, we can help you to attempt that recovery. But it just means that if someone's walking up to the device out in the field, they can't just take that code, type it into mobility.ui.com and take ownership of that site. The camera is connected to it, etc. So makes things a little bit more secure. And then in terms of the initial setup, so you'll see this goes very quickly. I've only left about 15 minutes left in this webinar, and that's because the setup is very simple. There's some initial steps that we take to start the setup process. And essentially what we do is it gives you a guided tour of what to do. It tells you the first step should be to set up data usage restrictions or data usage plans. So that step essentially allows you to specify how much cellular data is available on this device. In this instance, I've got a 25 gig SIM, and I want it to warn me at certain intervals. I can also say that I have a speed restriction on this as well. So I don't want any of my throughput to exceed, in this instance, 10 megabits per second. This can also function as an access point, as we would expect. So obviously I can set up a Wi-Fi AP or SSID on this, set up my security, assign a password to it, and if I was connecting, let's say, for example, IoT devices to it, it would mean it can go directly to that device as well. I'm going to skip back slightly. I just want to quickly highlight something that I scrolled past. and that is the internet settings that you see in front of you. So with this, you can specify what the primary WAN connection is as well. So I can say that this device is primarily connecting or using the LAN port as WAN connectivity in case um, connectivity is lost. So let's say, for example, you have I don't know, an IoT device connected to this, and you have a normal NBN connection on premise, but you want the connection to fail over to cellular in case the primary NBN goes down. And that's exactly what this allows. So by literally just clicking and dragging on any one of those two, you set the priority, and from there it allows you to fail over between the two of them. By default, it will attempt to use the cellular connection as the primary connection, of course. So you'll also see a bunch of settings about VPNs, port forwarding, firewall rules, routing, etc. We are going to work through those in a second. So this device is now busy updating. One of the first steps, obviously, for a new device. It's picking up my provider there. The signal in the building where I'm at is not the strongest thing on earth, but it gives me connectivity. We can see the received signal strength, as well as the values that we need to analyze whether it's a good connection or not. Currently, I don't have any clients connected to this. This will obviously start populating with client information, etc., when we start connecting them through. You can also do speed tests from here, and you can do overview about the usage of the device, what is connected to it, and apply additional settings beyond that, of course. So in terms of the actual interface, that's pretty much the entire thing. So it's nice to work through, easy to set up. There's not a million different granular tools that you need. Nothing's done through CLI. It is very straightforward to set up. Of course, one of the real world uses for this would be something like connecting a camera that is remote. So imagine this, you're out on a farm, you've got 4G covering the property or parts of the property. You don't want to put down long-range point-to-point links or something along those lines. And instead, all you want to do is give connectivity to one camera that is in a hard-to-reach place, or multiple cameras that are in a hard-to-reach place. So what we can do to achieve this is essentially make this a transparent connection from my NVR, my Ubiquiti NVR, and connect it through to a camera. With this, I've enabled that PoE pass-through mode, important if you want to use a camera or something behind that. And we see that it has network capabilities as well. So this can obviously do basic routing. And I've connected up a G4 Dome in this instance. It's grabbed its own IP address. Currently, it's not sending any data, so it's very empty. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a site-to-site VPN to my Ubiquiti controller. So my cloud gateway, I can either manually create it, or the simplified step here is to use Unified Cloud Gateway. You select the gateways that you already have on your account. Of course, it needs to have a static external IP address so that your device knows where to reach it continuously. In this instance, I'm pointing it to a UDM Pro SE, and I didn't need to do any config there. I literally just said, okay, I'm going to use that one. I can specify a DNS server if I wish, and then it already knows about the networks that are set up on that device. Again, because it can pull all of that from my account. Once that's saved, it should establish site-to-site connectivity. You'll notice it fail in this instance, and that is also it's a good thing. This is related to my Ubiquiti account. The account that I've signed in here has viewer permissions to that site that I've elected, but it does not have administrative permissions, so it won't allow me to connect to it. If I want to establish a successful connection, I'm doing the same thing here. I'm pointing it to my server, selecting the default network, because that's obviously where my NVR component is expecting to find cameras. And you'll see that connection is now set up. But you'll notice that device in use and status remains blank. It effectively doesn't do anything beyond that. So my initial thought was, okay, I'm going to have to do some either port forwarding or security or routing to point the traffic from this device to my VPN or to my remote gateway. Instead, it's actually a lot simpler. So if we go, once this connection is set up, if we go back to the device, we need to go into the settings, and we need to see an option here that allows VPN connectivity. So it says VPN connect. This is a step we normally see a lot of people get hung up on. And with this, I nominate what the VPN connection is, which one I'm pointing this to. You can obviously have multiple as well. And then once that's applied, you'll see the session starts to establish connectivity. It takes a second. Obviously, again, it's trying to find a server that's somewhere across the internet. You'll see a warning that says S2S connectivity is enabled, and it will take a few seconds for that to run through. I'm going to skip ahead slightly because it takes a bit of time. Again, this is done in real world, so you can very easily see that. The site-to-site connection is now live. It gives us logs about what exactly has happened. I can copy that out if I want to, and we can see the cellular data start to essentially flow through. On my remote gateway, so this is on the other side of the town, I can now, if I go to the network section, it's not going to show up, but as soon as I go to protect, you'll see that it becomes a device that is adoptable. So I've literally just pointed it to that, and suddenly it is adoptable through that interface. So if I have this device adopted, I'm literally just going through the adoption process, which obviously is just clicking on adopt. So there we go. Similar to how a device is locally connected, it's very quickly going through this process. It's checking its firmware version, and you can see the IP address of that device as well. And we can now start to see that if I go to the client segment, that data is starting to flow out from this device. And it'll take a bit of time for it to populate the traffic activity. Also, it only gives very basic traffic information on this because it doesn't have like deep packet inspection, etc. But this then becomes available through that site manager or through my protect, and you'll see it's busy preparing an update for this device. But if I wanted to, I can now click on the camera, I can view it remotely, and this is going through 4G, so that's live connectivity, and it's very easy for me to reach to that device. So this device could be literally on the other side of the country, and the connectivity process remains exactly the same. So super easy to set that up, and it's very powerful for enabling remote surveillance. Of course, there's way more options around this. It doesn't just need to be for cameras. Another common application that we see is where you would, for example, connect to a remote resource like a NAS. So let's say I was working remotely, sitting in my home office, and I needed to reach a NAS. My company has sent me one of these mobile routers, and I am now jumping onto that network, connected to it, and I want to be able to reach that NAS. It takes a second for it to recognize the client, do all of the configuration changes, etc. And I'm going to skip forward here slightly again so we can see it come up. Should come up in a second, I believe. There we go. So the client device has now been detected. Again, I'm leaving that site-to-site VPN connectivity in place, and it does allow me the basic capabilities to see what's happening on this client device. So I can see it's connecting on 2.4 gig, I can see how much throughput it's getting approximately, and I can get a bit of information about this. So now what I can do is I can check, so this is with the site-to-site VPN currently disabled, I can see if that resource is available to me, and that is the remote NAS, and in this instance, it's not reachable. So if I quickly drag over that NAS from my other site, so you'll see there's the Unify NAS Pro, and I'm attempting to connect to that, but it's obviously on a local IP address range. So I don't have anything assigned to it, and my client device can't reach it. I'm going to do the same thing I did before with the camera. Again, I just need to make sure that the VPN is set up and it's pointing the traffic towards that. So VPN Connect enabled. I'm going to again skip forward here since that takes a second. And once that connectivity is up, you'll see that the site-to-site VPN is up. I'm able to ping that resource, and that client device now shows up as a remote remote connection. I just called it remote camera in this instance. But I can ping that resource, so effectively I'm reaching from my local site through 4G via site-to-site VPNs into that space, and I can reach that NAS resource and obviously make use of it from there. From the WAN failover point of view, so this is obviously a big point where a lot of you will be using this. This is quite different to how the ULTE Backup Pro would work. With the WAN connectivity here, it essentially shows up as just a normal WAN port, so WAN 1, WAN 2. It does not have, for example, the predefined interface that will automatically do failover, etc., that you would expect from the ULTE backup. So this treated way more like a traditional either NBN or 4G connection. You still have all the configuration options. Obviously, you can say this is for failover or load balancing or whatever you want, and it can function just as a basic normal WAN connectivity. So it doesn't have a special interface like you would see on the ULTE backup. So just a note on the ULTE backup Pro, that device is meant to function as a backup only. It does not support the ability to function as a primary internet connection. Whereas with this, you potentially can. So if you have a remote site out in the middle of nowhere and you're using a little Unify Express and you just want to have some WAN connectivity, then this is a very good option. It effectively allows you to connect it up as the primary WAN. So there's a broad range of applications for this. You can use this to connect stuff like IoT devices. Think about sensors. Think about different dry contacts, different triggers. Anything that you can think of will potentially support 2.4 gigahertz, or you can connect it via the LAN, and you can trigger those devices irrespective of where they're physically at. You can also see stuff on the move through that GPS tracking capability. So really, really easy to use, and it's a very reliable connectivity method as well. The last point I just want to touch on is obviously there's a cost to licensing. So this is kind of to be expected. If you're looking at the competitors, there's normally a cost associated with mobile management. So that mobile management allows you to access those features that we just saw through that little drop-down bar, which allows you to apply connectivity changes or make changes remotely. So to do that, effectively you provision these plans directly through the mobility site manager. You do get a 30-day mobility trial, and stuff like the site-to-site VPNs, etc., are all controlled via that. So these are fairly cost-effective. So I believe the pricing that's shown on there is in USD currently, but speaking under correction there, so it might already have been changed to AUD as well. That being said, this is just a very quick overview of the technical side of it. The devices themselves are super easy to use and set up. If you do want to have a trial of these, please do feel free to reach out to your leader account manager. They will be able to set you up with a NFR as well, so we can give you a bit of discount on these devices if you want to give it a go. The last thing that I just want to quickly touch on is the essential Unify resources. So we get questions a lot about where do I find certain resources? How do I see how to design sites, etc. So the resources on screen is pretty much where you would get that. You're welcome to grab a screenshot from this, or alternatively, you can just reach out to me afterwards. I will also be sending out this webinar recording to all of the attendees, as well as the people who couldn't attend, or even if you joined midway through, you will be getting a copy of the recording here as well. From Leader's side, we obviously do have a bunch of value-added services as well. I'm not going to go through them individually now, but I just wanted to quickly highlight them as they are important. With that, I just quickly want to take a look at your questions to see what you guys want input on. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask it through now. We'll be trying to answer them as best as I can. Okay, so very good question from Stephen here, or Stephen, sorry. Will there be optional antennas for improving signal in mobile coverage areas? Yes, so 100%. So a lot of those devices that we saw, the connectors are just standardized connectors. You can use pretty much whatever antenna you want. So that's on the mobile routers as well as the ULTE. The ULTE even has connectors at the bottom of it where you can connect an external antenna. So Leader does provide a bunch of third-party antennas as well that you can use to stick onto this. You do get specific ones that are meant to go onto vehicles and that do help with 4G connectivity as well. So 100% we have solutions for that. It's completely possible to do it. Any timeline estimates on the LTE Backup Pro? I wish I could give this to you. We are pushing so hard. It's purely up to certification at this stage. As soon as we can get certification, we will be the first guys to shout that it's available. It is very important for us as well. We see the benefit of this product, so definitely want to get this to you guys. Sorry for not being able to give you a direct answer, but we're really pushing as hard as we can. So There's a question here from Shan asking, is Ubiquiti going to charge for Mobility Cloud as suggested in their community post from a year ago? So they have reduced the pricing considerably. We are, so the pricing is still, I think, up for discussion. I have seen Ubiquiti apply additional discounts or pricing changes in different regions. It's something we're working on. If we compare the pricing right now to competitors in our region, I think it's pretty fair, but we're going on your input. So if you feel it's too expensive, or if you feel that there's not enough features or something along those lines, we need to know how to justify the price of those subscriptions. So we'd be very happy to discuss that. And also, as part of the resources to use, please feel free to take a look at Ubiquiti's community pages. They do often publish updates about pricing changes and what's coming in certain regions, etc. And then last question here from Pete asking, with the remote application, would it use a lot of data connected via VPN? Is there an option to have on-site recording via Unify Max? Okay, very good question as well. So yes, that 100% highlights one of the key issues with setting up stuff like a remote camera. So a camera, 100%, yes, it would use a fair amount of data. The VPN connection itself is not too intense in terms of throughput. So I've left my VPN connection set up here with just one of the cast devices connected to it. And because there's no active streaming, it is a very low throughput. Over 24 hours, I spent only about 124 megs, which is low. So it's not too bad for that. If you want to do cameras, for example, it will use a bit more, but you absolutely have the option to have a Unify Cloud Gateway Max on premise, recording to that, and essentially you can even set up remote archiving as well to say during certain time intervals, I want to archive certain video footage to a specific offsite location or something along those lines. It's very flexible in terms of how you do that, but you can have either or. So either remote recording or local recording, up to you how you want to do it. That site-to-site VPN just makes it a lot easier. Any other questions that you guys might have? Please feel free to post them through now. Thank you guys for sticking around. Sorry, I know we've gone slightly over time. Okay, so with that again, my email address is in the chat. So if you guys have additional questions, please feel free to send them through there. Happy to help. And again, if you have any pre-sales requests or want to show your customers something, please do have a chat to me. Thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a good one, everyone. Cheers.